So, Jenni, I went to a million years ago. I went to Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I was surrounded by Sooner fans, and I still have a bunch of Sooner fan friends. The one thing that I know they agree on is that Lincoln Riley is like public enemy number one.
Oh, yes. That has not changed.
He's right up there with Kevin Durant. But you cover this team all the time. I mean, what's kind of the general feeling among Sooner fans about, this season? And are they still, behind Brett Venables? Obviously, it hasn't gone the way they wanted.
No, not at all. I think that obviously Brent Venables was a very popular hire when Joe Castiglione pulled the trigger after Lincoln Riley left. Obviously, a known commodity around here, and had such great success at Clemson over the last decade. Really, probably you could say the best defensive coordinator in all of college football, really over that decade. So I think a lot of really high hopes that he would just come in and pick up where the program was and then improve what else needed to be improved. But the transfer portal hit OU probably harder than a lot of people wanted to admit. They lost a decent amount when Lincoln Riley left, and they lost a decent amount to the NFL. I mean, they lost 5 defenders who were taken in the NFL draft. So they just by that measure, they were going to have some talent to replace. So, and truthfully, if you go and look at all Big 12 teams, the Big 12 team at the end of last year and the preseason Big 12 team this year, Oklahoma just didn't have many guys represented. And there weren't a ton of guys you could point to and say, man, that guy should have been on there over this guy. Their punter was a first team, a preseason pick. But, Marvin Mims, the receiver is really good, but could you replace any of the receivers that were first team? No. I mean, there's just a bunch of those examples. So the talent is not what the talent has been, and it has been going steadily downhill over the last few years. I think Brent Venables in this group is seeing the unfortunate fruits of that. Plus, they're also really, they brought in a new offense with Jeff Lebby. They brought in a defense, obviously, with Brent, and installing those two offense and defense, and then getting the players that they want to run it. It's just like they've got personnel that were brought in to run different stuff. So in reality, it was going to take some time, but I think the expectation was, last time OU made a coaching change, it went from good to great. And, by God, Brent Venables coming back, it's all going to be fantastic. And I think the reality, it was never probably going to be as good, but it was hard not to think, well, Oklahoma just keeps being Oklahoma. But I think a lot of people in the fan base obviously want better, but I think there's also an understanding that in whatever amount of time, Oklahoma is going to go to the SEC. And Brent Venables knows how to beat SEC teams because he did it at Clemson. And so having a team with a defense that can compete in the SEC is very important. So I think there is that grinding in a lot of OU fans' heads, like, oh, 3 losses. This is terrible. But then there's the recognition of like, okay, if this team is better prepared for the SEC in a couple years after this and the next few years, then I think that'll be a lot easier pill to swallow.
Yeah, good points.